Good day, everybody. Welcome back to our subject, Readings in Philippine History. And finally, we are now in our semi-final term, which is all about the Chapter 4, the social, political, economic, and cultural issues in Philippine history. So before we are going to discuss all of this, let me share with you on board the learning objectives of this Chapter 4. First is to analyze social, political, economic, and cultural issues in Philippines using the lens of history and to recognize that the problems of today are consequences of decisions and events that happened in the past. And lastly, and second to the last, to understand the several enduring issues in Philippine society through history and to propose recommendations or solutions to present day problems based on the understanding of the past and the anticipation of the future through the study of history. So what we'll discuss? We'll be discussing the evolution of Philippine Constitution. We'll be knowing if there is an evolution of the Philippine Constitution. The 1897 Constitution of Biak-na-Bato, the primary source, the preamble of the Biak-na-Bato Constitution, and lastly is the Malolos 1899 Malolos Constitution. So now, let's start with the evolution of the Philippine Constitution. So, Constitution is defined as a fundamental principles or established precedents according to which a state or other organization is governed. So that is the definition of constitution. So thus the word itself, the constitution, means to be part of a whole. The coming together of distinct entities into one group with nga na ay pari-pariha nga principles and ideas. And ang kaninga mga principles, nag-define ni siya sa nature and extent of the government or which a state or other organization is governed. No, mana siya, no? And if we say, no, butang din it's a set of fundamental principles. So, kung ingon tag set of fundamental principles. So it lays out the basic rules and principles nga mo guide para mo function ang isa ka state or organization. And na kuan po dinhi nga it's an established precedents, no? Mauni ang mga mag-provide of sense of continuity and stability to the governance system that have evolved over time. No? Mga na siya. So, in short, ang Constitution, mura siya og rule book of the state or organization. It is a body of a fundamental principles or established precedents according to which a state or the other organization is acknowledged to be governed. Next is Constitution of the Philippines, the supreme law of the Republic of the Philippines has been effect since 1897. Yes, the Philippines has undergone several constitution changes throughout its history. There were only 3 other constitutions that have effectively governed the country. First, we have the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution, the 1973 Constitution, and the 1986 Freedom of Constitution. So these different constitutions, no, ano silang tulo, reflect the political changes and struggle for democracy that the Philippines has experienced throughout its history. However, there were earlier nga mga constitution attempted by Filipinos in the struggle to break from the colonial yoke. So, what is the Constitution of the Philippines? The Constitution 1987 is the fundamental law, fundamental law of the land in the Philippines. It establishes the structure, policies, rules, and duties of the Philippines government. So, ang kaning Constitution of the Philippines or kaning 1987 Constitution, it contains the Bill of Rights, Article 3. That is why ipa-memorize na mo about the Bill of Rights. Because it set out the state's obligation para i-promote and i-uphold ang social justice and human rights. And that was according to Article 13. No? And in Article 2 sa Bill of Rights, Section 2 of the Constitution provides that, no. Article 2, Section 2 of Constitution na provides that generally accepted principle of international law are part of the law of the land. And napo dito ang Section 18 of the Constitution, it lays out the procedure how the President as Commander-in-Chief may call for a suspension of the right of habeas corpus or declare any part of the Philippines under martial law. Muna siya. So therefore, ang kaning Constitution of the Philippines ratified ni in 1987, and it serves as the fundamental law of the land. And it outlines the structure of the Philippine government and defines the power and responsibilities of its branches and enumerates the rights and freedom of its citizen. So overall, ang Constitution of the Philippines serves as the bedrock of the country's legal and political system, guiding the governance of the nation and safeguarding the rights and welfare of its constitution. Next, the 1897 Constitution of Biak-na-Bato. So the Constitution of Biak-na-Bato was provisionary Constitution of the Philippine Republic during the Philippine Revolution and was promulgated by the Philippine Revolutionary Government on November 1, 1897. That's according to Isabelo Artaco and Felix Ferrer. So, ang kaning pod nga Constitution of Biak-na-Bato, it was borrowed from Cuba and was written by Isabelo Artaco and Felix Ferrer in Spanish and later on translated into Tagalog. And take note that ang kaninga Constitution of Biak-na-Bato was provisionary, or in short, dili final or not fully agreed upon, or pansamantala lang siya. So, what was the role of the Philippine revolutionary government? Unsa kaha ang role ani Philippine revolutionary government? So, ang kaning Philippine revolutionary government, it was formed to govern the territories liberated sa Spain nga gi-control and to organize resistance against colonial rule. And this Philippine revolutionary government, it played a crucial role in the fight for the Philippine independence. So while the Constitution of Biak-na-Bato was a significant milestone sa Philippine Revolution because it was ultimately changed or pinalitan by subsequent developments in the struggle for a Philippine independence. Isa na din hiya ang Proclamation of Philippine Independence on June 12, 1898 ug ang mga establishment of the First Philippine Republic. So these are the organs of the government under this 1897 Constitution of Biak-na-Bato. First is we have the Supreme Council, which was vested with the power of the Republic. So it composed of Interior, the Foreign Affairs, the Treasury, and the War. So before anything else, atong i-define sa what is Supreme Council. Kay ingon diri vested with the power of the Republic. So ato sa pun i-define what is Republic. So Republic is a form of government in which the people elect, the people choose their leaders. Wala siya ha. So therefore, ang Supreme Council, this council is usually composed of influential individuals or leaders who make important decisions for the republic as a whole. It was headed by, of course, the president, headed by the president and the four departments. So these are the four departments. First, the interior, sila ang includes the managing of domestic issues such as law enforcement, local governance, and public administration, mo na sila. The foreign affairs, of course, from the word itself, foreign, so mo ni sila ang naay interaction with other countries or with this department, no, or ministry. It is responsible for handling the republic's relations and matong ingon interaction with other countries. The Department of Treasury. This includes collecting taxes, managing government revenue and expenditures, and overseeing monetary policies. And lastly is the war. This includes the organization and deployment of Republic's armed forces, as well as the defense strategy and planning in times of conflict or war. The second is the Consejo Supremo de Gracia y Justicia, or the Supreme Council of Grace and Justice, which was given an authority to make decision and affirm or disapprove the sentences rendered by other courts and to dictate rules for the administration of justice. So, ang primary function was to oversee or tan-awon ang mga legal system para ma-ensure ang fairness in the dispensation sa paghatag sa mga justice within the jurisdiction it governed. And gayon diri ang na siya authority to make decisions. So, of course, the Supreme Council had the authority para mohimo og decision on legal matters. And this involves sa pag-review sa mga cases, pag-interpret sa laws, and rendering judgments or making an evaluation. And giingon po din hiya affirm or disapprove sentences. Ang Supreme Council no, ang Supreme Council had the power to i-confirm or reject ang sentences issued by the lower courts and mo allowed po ni siya og mechanism of appeal and review para ma-ensure na ang judicial decisions were just fair and just. And mag-dictate po ni siya og rules for the administration of justice for the ang Supreme Council man jud kay naa siya responsible for establishing rules and regulation governing the administration of justice within its jurisdiction. So this could include the procedural rules, the guidelines for legal proceedings, and standards for legal practice. So in short, ang Supreme Council, it played a crucial role in, of course, upholding the role of law and para i-ensure nga ang justice was administered fairly and impartially. And its authority helped maintain order and integrity within the legal system of the region or entity it governed. Next is the Asamblea de Representantes or Assembly of Representatives, which was to be convened after the revolution to create a new constitution and to elect a new council of government and representatives of people. So giingon diri create a new constitution. Mo ni si Assembly of Representatives. This is one of the tasks of the Assembly of Representatives and outlining the structure of government, the rights of the citizens, and the distribution of powers among governmental institutions. And na butang po dinhi kaning elect a new council of government. Another important responsibility of the Assembly of Representatives was to elect a new council of government. This council would likely serve as the executive branch of the government. No, they are responsible for implementing laws, administering the public affairs, and representing the entity or country domestically and internationally. And representatives of the people or election of representatives of the people. So the Assembly of Representatives would have been tasked with electing representative of the people. And these representatives would likely serve in a legislative body such as parliament or Congress and would be responsible for enacting laws or representing the interests of their constituents and mag-provide sila og system of checks and balances within the government. So overall, the Asamblea de Representantes or Assembly of Representatives was envisioned as a key institution of the post-revolutionary period and responsible for laying the foundation for a new political order, establishing democratic governance structures, and ensuring the representation and participation of the people in decision-making process. And that's the three branches of the government under the Constitution of Biak-na-Bato. The Constitution of Biak-na-Bato was never fully implemented since a truce. The Pact of Biak-na-Bato was signed between the Spanish and the Philippine Revolutionary Army. However, the Constitution of Biak-na-Bato was never fully implemented due to the signing pact of Biak-na-Bato. So the pact was a truce or agreement reached between the Spanish colonial government and the Philippine Revolutionary Army in December 1897. And there were several key provisions agreed upon. Isa na ani ang pagbaligya sa Philippines sa America. No? And that is the Treaty of Paris. Next is the primary source or the preamble of the Biak-na-Bato Constitution. So before anything else, let's define first what is preamble. So preamble, it is an introductory statement that sets forth the purpose and guiding principle of a document, serving as a foundation for a legal and political framework it establishes. Again, introductory statement, kana adria ang mga purpose and guiding principles of a constitution or a document. And now, let's try to analyze the preamble of the Biak-na-Bato Constitution. So, the separation of the Philippines from Spanish monarchy and their formation into an independent state with its own government, called the Philippine Republic, has been the end sought by the revolution in the existing war, begun on the 24th of August 1896, and therefore in its name by the power delegated by the Filipino people, interpreting faithfully their desires and ambitions, we, the representatives of the revolution, in a meeting at Biak-na-Bato, November 1, 1897, unanimously adopted the following articles for the Constitution of the state. So this preamble of Biak-na-Bato Constitution was provided for the establishment of the Supreme Council that would serve as the highest governing body of the Republic. And it also outlined certain basic human rights, such as freedom of religion, freedom of press, and the right to education. So, on the significant date in our history, let us take the opportunity to reflect on the quality and character of our forebears and the sacrifices they were willing to make to win our freedom as a people. Because in our revolutionary generals, because our revolutionary generals who fought against superior odds can stand proud with the national heroes of any other people. And in our daily work, let us try to capture a bit of their zeal and dedication and endeavor to carry on with a similar measure of devotion to duty, honor, and country. So this is the list we, the Filipinos of today, can do in the years to come. Let us show to all the strength of our unity, solidarity, and teamwork as those of the revolution did 100 years ago. And take note that the Philippine president during this 1897 Constitution of the Biak-na-Bato was President Fidel V. Ramos. Now let's proceed to the Malolos Constitution. So after the signing of the truce, the Philippine revolutionary leaders accepted the payment from Spain and went to exile in Hong Kong. So upon the defeat of the Spanish to the Americans in the Battle of Manila Bay on May 1, 1898, the United States Navy transported Aguinaldo back to the Philippines. Take note ha nga si Aguinaldo na-exile sa Hong Kong since 1897 after signing the Pact of Biak-na-Bato with the Spanish authorities. Ang pagbalik ni Aguinaldo sa Philippines was part of a broader strategy sa United States para i-weaken ang Spanish control over its colonies sa Asia and the Pacific. And ang mga Americans saw Emilio Aguinaldo and the Filipino Revolutionary as a potential allies in their efforts to undermine or panghihinaan sa Spanish rule in the Philippines. And the newly reformed Philippine Revolutionary Forces reverted, ibinalik to the control of Aguinaldo, and the Philippine Declaration of the Independence was issued on June 12, 1898, together with the several decrees that formed the first Philippine Republic. So the Philippine Revolutionary Forces, the Philippine Revolutionary Forces, it's typically referred to armed group or factions involved in revolutionary movements aimed at overthrowing the government or bringing about significant political change in the Philippines, including those involved in the Philippine Revolution against the Spanish colonization. And the Malolos Congress was elected with selected a commission to draw up a draft constitution on September 17, 1898, which was composed of wealthy and educated men. Yes, the Malolos Congress was indeed elected on September 15, 1898 by a revolutionary leaders to represent the Filipino people in their quest for independence from Spanish colonial rule, which was composed of wealthy and educated men. Among them included si Apolinario Mabini, Felipe Calderon, and Pedro Paterno. The document they came up with, approved by the President Emilio Aguinaldo on January 21, 1899, was titled The Political Constitution of 1899 and written in Spanish. So this constitution established the framework for the first Philippine Republic, which declared the independence of the Philippines from Spanish rule and sought to establish a democratic government for the newly formed nation. So the constitution was written primarily in Spanish, and the official language of government and education in the Philippines during that time. No, Spanish. That's the official language of the government and education for the Philippines during Aninga time. So the Constitution has 39 articles divided into 14 titles, which 8 articles of transitory provisions in a final additional article. And sa kani nga mga provisions gidesign ni to address immediate concerns and facilitate the establishment of the new government under the First Philippine Republic. The document was patterned after the Spanish Constitution of 1812, with influences from the charters of Belgium, Mexico, Brazil, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Guatemala, and the French Constitution of 1793. According to Felipe Calderon, he was the main author of this constitution. Kato daw nga mga countries were studied because they shared similar social, political, ethnological, and governance condition with the Philippines. Prior constitutional project in the Philippines also influenced the Malolos Constitution. So these are the constitutional projects nga nag-influence sa Malolos Constitution. First is Cartilla and the Sanggunian Hukuman. This is the Charter of Laws and Morals of the Katipunan written by Emilio Jacinto in 1896. So these were the Charter of Laws and Morals of the Katipunan, the revolutionary society that fought for Philippine independence against Spanish rule. Second is the Biak-na-Bato Constitution of 1897. It was planned by Isabelo Artaco. This was constitution, no? Nagiplan ni Isabelo Artaco during the negotiations between sa Filipino revolutionary leaders and the Spanish authorities in Biak-na-Bato. Although it was never fully implemented, as what we have discussed earlier. Mabini's constitutional program of the Philippine Republic of 1898. So dinhi we all know naman nga si Apolinario Mabini was a prominent Filipino revolutionary and intellectual, proposed a constitutional program nga nag-outline sa iyang vision for the Philippine Republic. and his ideas on governance and sovereignty likely contributed to the drafting process. And the Provisional Constitution of Mariano Ponce in 1898 that followed the Spanish Constitution. Si Mariano Ponce, he was a Filipino nationalist and propagandist. He drafted a provisional constitution that followed the Spanish constitutional tradition. Next, or the last, is the autonomy projects of Paterno in 1898. Pedro Paterno, he was a Filipino politician and a writer. Nag-propose siya og lahi-lahi nga autonomy project nga nag-aim at the achieving a Filipino self-government under Spanish rule. So again, these are the various constitutional projects and documents provided or provide insight into the diverse range of ideas and influences that shape the drafting of the Malolos Constitution and the broader quest for the Philippine independence. Now let's proceed to the primary source, the preamble of the Political Constitution of 1899. We, the representative of the Filipino people, lawfully convened in order to establish justice, provide for common defense, promote the general welfare, and ensure the benefits of liberty, imploring the aid of the sovereign legislator of the universe for the attainment of these ends, have voted, decreed, and sanctioned the following political constitution. So this preamble of Political Constitution of 1899, it reflects the aspirations and intentions of the Filipino people as represented by their delegates in Malolos Constitution. And also, ang kaning preamble po no, of the Political Constitution of 1899, it sets the tone for the Constitution, emphasizing the commitment to justice, defense, welfare, and liberty, with an acknowledgement of reliance on divine guidance for the achievement of these objectives. And as a direct challenge of the colonial authorities of the Spanish Empire, the sovereignty was reverted to the people, a legal principle underlying the Philippine Revolution. So the retroversion, no, or kaning retroversion of sovereignty to the people was indeed a fundamental concept underlying the Philippine Revolution against Spanish colonial rule. And kanipo siya is a legal and political principle nga nagsuggest nga ang sovereignty originates from the people and is temporarily delegated to the government. And the people delegated governmental function to civil servant while they retain actual sovereignty. Yes, that's correct. During sa Philippine Revolution against the Spanish colonial rule, ang Filipino people delegated governmental function sa civil servant or representative samtang gi-retain nila ang actual sovereignty. And ang kani nga delegation of authority was a practical necessity for the functioning of the revolutionary government, but it was understood that ultimate authority still resided with the Filipino people themselves. The 27 articles of Title IV detail the natural rights and popular sovereignty of Filipinos, the enumeration of which does not imply the prohibition of any other rights not expressly stated. So the Article 4 of the Malolos Constitution indeed focus on the Bill of Rights, enumerating the various civil liberties and protection for Filipino citizens. So these rights included freedom of speech, press, assembly, and religion, as well as the provision for due process and equal protection under the law. And the Title 3 of Article 5 also declares that the state recognizes the freedom and equality of all beliefs as well as the separation of church and state. So it addresses the principle of the separation of church and state and the recognition of freedom and equality of all beliefs. So these are the direct reactions to features of the Spanish government in the Philippines, where the friars were dominant agents of the state. The form of government, according to Title 2, Article 4, is to be popular, representative, alternative, and responsible, and shall exercise sa kaning tulo ka distinct powers. First, the legislative, executive, and judicial. Ato ning i-discuss isa-isa kaning distinct power of government. No? Kay kaning three distinct power of government, nag-reflect ni siya sa separation of powers doctrine that ensures a balance of authority among different branches of government. So the legislative power was vested in a unicameral body called the Assembly of Representatives, members of which are elected for terms of 4 years. So as a unicameral body, the Assembly of Representatives was the sole legislative authority in the First Philippine Republic, responsible for drafting and passing laws, as well as representing the interest of the people. And take note that this assembly was composed of members who were elected by the Filipino people and served terms for 4 years. And the secretaries of the government were given seats in the assembly, which meet annually for a period of at least 3 months. So in the Malolos Constitution of 1899, provisions was made for secretaries for the government to have seat in the Assembly of Representatives. This allowed for coordination between the executive branch and the legislative body, ensure that the government policies and mga initiatives could be effectively communicated and implemented. And bills could indeed be introduced by either the president or by a member of assembly of representatives. So these provisions allowed for flexibility in legislative process and ensure that proposals for new laws or amendments to existing laws could originate from multiple sources within the government. So some powers not legislative in nature were also given to the body, such as the right to select its own officers, right to censure and interpretation, and the right of impeaching the president, cabinet members, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and the Solicitor General. And a permanent commission of 7 elected by the Assembly and granted specific powers by the Constitution was to sit during the intervals between the seasons of assembly. So these powers granted to the Assembly of Representatives serve as a checks and balances within the government, allowing for oversight of executive and judicial actions and ensuring accountability of government officials to the legislative body and ultimately to the Filipino people. Next is the executive power was vested in the president and elected by a constituent assembly of the Assembly of Representatives by special representatives. So the president will serve a term of 4 years without re-election. Take note ha nga, during ni siya sa Constitution of 1899. It is not applicable on today's political constitution. There was no vice president, and in case of vacancy, a president was to be selected by the Constituent Assembly. So these provisions reflected the structure of government established by the First Philippine Republic during its brief period of independence from Spanish colonial rule, and the absence of a vice president and the method for filing presidential uh, vacancies were a unique feature of the constitutional framework of this time. So therefore, the Malolos Constitution was never enforced due to the ongoing war. So the Philippines was effectively a territory of the United States upon the signing of the Treaty of Paris between the Spain and the United States, transferring the sovereignty of the Philippines on December 10, 1898. So the Treaty of Paris signed between the Spain and the United States on December 10, 1898, effectively effectively transferred sovereignty of the Philippines from Spain to United States. So this transfer of sovereignty occurred without the consent of the Filipino revolutionaries, leading to continued resistance against American colonial rule. So in short, this Constitution of 1899, Malolos Constitution, was never enforced due to the ongoing war. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.